Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today I'm going to be doing a Supreme King Zark test hand video. So I recently did a profile of this deck, and you guys have been asking for this one like crazy for me to do basically a test hand video of how I play around with my Supreme King Zark deck profile. It's a really interesting deck that can summon Zark very, very easy. You can even summon multiple Zarks in a game, which is really exciting for this deck, with a 4K beat stick that as soon as it comes out on the field, it just wipes the entire board of your opponent's side of the field, which is insanely good, and it's a really fun pendulum-based deck. So, without further ado, guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell on there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out that Patreon down in the description below because we have some awesome rewards for you guys, like getting your name in the description for every single video, getting a signed card sent to the mail, or even getting a requested deck profile just like this one every single month that you're our patron. So, without further ado, guys, let's get straight on into this. So, this is a really interesting deck that I actually have a really cool, interesting story about this deck, too. Actually, the first deck that I ever was commissioned to actually build was this deck. I had this deck for a long time, and I had somebody email me and say, hey, you know, I really wanted that deck built around Zark, and I would actually commission you to do it. And I was like, all right, let's do that. So I actually built this deck for commission originally and was really excited to do so because it's a really fun experience to build a deck with somebody and actually work on the deck with them, because I would build a deck and they would say, yeah, I like this aspect, and this aspect, but is there any way that you can make it faster here, here, and here? And I was like, okay, you don't like that part, let's fix it. So I ended up working on it, I think 3 times for the person, and eventually they were finally happy with it and they liked how it worked for that particular format, and it was really an exciting and cool experience. And so this deck has a very special place in my heart because this was the very first deck that I actually commissioned for somebody. So if you guys ever want to commission a deck, definitely check out the Patreon, because now I do it where you have a Patreon subscription and you guys can check that out. But before I had my Patreon, people would just email me and say, hey, can you do this? And I was like, sure. So that's why it's one of the rewards. So without further ado, let's go ahead and draw out some cards. I'll go ahead and just draw them because I've kind of shuffled this deck and been playing with it, so I don't need to particularly pile shuffle it just for the draw hands. I will before I do the play out hands. So we're going to go ahead and draw into a Star Pentagraph, which is a good opening card. Sky Iris, which is pretty good. Gate Infinity, I like and dislike this card all at once. It helps a lot, but if you control a monster, you can't Pendulum Summon. Harmonizing Magician, that's pretty good. And then a copy of Purple Poison. You can't really get Zark out with this particular hand, but it's not terrible because you do have in your hand one of the 3 pieces or one of the 4 pieces that you need along with a Sky Iris. So you have a potential to get to all your pieces that you need besides the copy of what's it called? Chronograph Sorcerer, which would be a little bit tough to get to in this particular hand. It's not terrible, but you're not going to go into Zark every time you go first. When you go second, however, that's when you really start lighting it up and start going into Zark. See, with that 6th card, you drew into your copy of Chronograph, and it makes the hand infinitely better. So let's go ahead and do another draw hand and see what we can actually get. We're just going to do 3 of these really quickly and see what we can do, just to show you guys a little bit more value of getting the deck and seeing what you guys can actually think of and comment down below. You guys seem to really like this version of the test hand. So let's go ahead and draw. We get a copy of Perform Palace Celestial Magician, Wisdom Eye Magician, White Wing Magician, Star Pentagraph, and a copy of Wisdom Eye Magician. The Wisdom Eye Magician double Wisdom Eye is not great because you don't want to draw into double Wisdom Eye. It's not terrible because you can just set 1 on your scale and then activate the copy of White Wing and then use this with a copy of Chronograph. Now the only thing that you have to keep in mind is you can't Pendulum Summon, or you can't fusion summon from back here using like a Verte Anaconda combo, because the 2 really good cards that are in this deck, by the way, this is not bad because as soon as one of these leaves, also you're going to get a search. So you're going to get essentially 2 pieces off of that 1 card, which is really not bad. But if you're going second, you get the Chronograph again, and you're really, really set. See, this is why I keep telling you guys, going second in this deck is really insane. But I will show you guys something really quickly that's important about this deck, is actually the Verte Anaconda is super important. And then one of my own little surprise techs in here is actually the Union Carrier. Because if you end up with your side of the field where you have something like a copy of your... Let's just say that you have 2 monsters on your side of the field that you really can't use to go into your copy of the what's the name, Zark. You have Chronograph on your side of the field, and let's just say that you have your copies of Purple Poison, and let's say you have Black Fang as well, because Black Fang is really, really easy to get out of the deck. The only one that's kind of difficult is White Wing. Let's just say you have Black Fang in the deck, and you're missing one of your pieces that's the Black Fang. So you're missing the Black Fang, or you're missing, in my normal standards, you're usually missing your copy of Odd Eye's Pendulum Dragon or a Pendulum Dragon monster. You can actually use the Union Carrier to equip one of the last pieces that you're missing to a monster on your side of the field, and since it exists on the field, you can use it with Chronograph to banish your Chronograph, your Fusion, your Synchro, your XYZ, and your Pendulum Dragon off the field to actually summon your copy of Zark, which is super important to be able to get out. The copy of Union Carrier really lights up the extra deck, and I'm really excited that this card is actually a thing. To begin with, when they actually came out with Union Carrier, I really wanted them to ban it like right off the bat because I thought it was broken. But I don't think it's quite as broken anymore. I think if they ban Buster Dragon, I feel like it would be totally fine, which I'm a little disappointed that they're actually going to ban a Buster Blader card, but I think they probably will on the next coming list or so. So let's go ahead and do an actual play-out test hand. That was actually, I'm just going to count that as one of the test hands that we draw out of the deck to show you guys that combo. So let's go ahead and play out a test hand as well. So if we're going to play this out, we're going to go ahead and draw and get into a White Wing Magician. That's not bad. Sky Iris to search for the Odd Eyes. Chronograph right off the bat. Time Gazer, you don't want to draw into Time Gazer, that's not great, but we can put it in the scale, and a copy of Gate Infinity. Gate Infinity we can always just pop with the Sky Iris. So I'm going to say I'm going second, because if I go second with this hand, it's going to be a lot better, because you're going to get that extra Pendulum card that's going to help you out, like the Star Pentagraph. Because if a Pendulum Magician leaves your field, then you immediately get to add another one from deck to hand. So I'm going to go ahead and activate my Gate Infinity, which is going to immediately get popped by my Sky Iris, because that's really important to just get it off the field as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, I don't have Arc Pendulum in my hand to be able to go off even further. And you can also activate, before you activate the Sky Iris's effect, you can activate your copy of Pendulum Call, because then it's going to get you the other cards that you need. So we're going to immediately go ahead and pop the copy of Gate Infinity off the field, which is going to search us a Odd Eyes card from our deck to our hand. If you really want to be cheeky about this, you can also put this back in your hand and put your copy of Time Gazer on your side of the field to pop, because then you can immediately get out another scale, which is really nice. Or you can pop your copy of your White Wing Magician and really get a combo going where you can pop one of your scales, essentially, to get it out of your hand. But let's go ahead and just say that we pop the copy of Time Gazer because it's the least useful. We're going to use the copy of Sky Iris, and then this is going to get popped and go to the extra deck. And its effect is that your this will go off, and then this will chain to it, going Chain Link 1, Chain Link 2. Where you'll actually get to, if a face-up Magician Pendulum monster in your monster zone or your Pendulum zone, it leaves the field, you get to add a card, and you get to add an Odd Eyes card from your deck to your hand. So we're going to go ahead and add the copy of our, I always add off of the Time Pentagraph or Star Pentagraph, I usually add Harmonizing Magician because it gives me additional material to link summon, like I was talking about a minute ago, going into Union Carrier. Hopefully we'll actually get to pull that off, because then you'll get to search this out of the deck. And then you'll also get to search from your deck a copy of something like maybe a copy of your Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon, because if you search Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon, or you search a lower scale Odd Eyes, which I don't believe we have any other really low scales. Like the lowest we have is a 4 and we have a 5. You usually want to search something like a copy of, you can search a copy of Arc Pendulum if you want to search Arc Pendulum, because that's not going to be terrible to go off into, and we already have 2 of the pieces that we need right here to go into it. Well, really 3 out of the 5. So we have plenty of the pieces that we need to go into. So we're going to go ahead and lay our Pendulum Scales, which is going to be really, really helpful for the entire hand. Go ahead and lay that copy of White Wing, and go ahead and lay that copy of Gate Infinity. Now, the thing about Gate Infinity is if you control a monster, you cannot Pendulum Summon, and this effect cannot be negated. But I don't control a monster, so I can Pendulum Summon still. So I'm going to go ahead and Pendulum Summon out my Chronograph, my copy of my Harmonizing Magician, and my Arc Pendulum on my side of the field, which is a really good starter play just to get some cards out on your side of the field. Now, the Harmonizing Magician's effect will trigger getting from our deck to our side of the field one of our Pendulum Magicians, which we can then search a copy of the Purple Poison Magician, which is going to help out quite a lot just to get one of our Pendulum monsters on our side of the field. And now you can kind of count it up. We have kind of what we need in order to get the monsters on our side of the field. We don't have quite Zark on our side of the field, but we do have a little bit of what we need. You are missing the XYZ Dragon, which is a little unfortunate. We don't have the way to actually go into Zark with this particular hand, but you can still go into it. I'm going to show you how, because this card's effect is that you can banish from your graveyard. So that's something to keep in mind. So we can do something really, really easy to actually go into Zark by using these two monsters right here, overlay directly into a Time Star Magician, and then once you overlay into Time Star Magician, detach the material for Purple Poison Magician, and then grab from your deck to your hand your copy of Black Fang Magician. Now that we grabbed the Black Fang Magician, we're going to shuffle that deck up, and guess what? We have all the pieces that we need, because Chronograph banishes from field, graveyard, or hand. It says on the card text, you can banish this card you control plus 4 monsters from your hand, field, and or graveyard, with each a Pendulum Dragon, XYZ Dragon, Synchro Dragon, and a Fusion Dragon. So here we go. We've got our Fusion Dragon in the graveyard. We have our Synchro Dragon in our Pendulum Zone, which is fine, because it's technically on the field. It's always treated as a Synchro Dragon. We have our XYZ Dragon in our hand, and we have our Pendulum Dragon on our side of the field, and then we have our copy of Chronograph in our hand. Now we can banish all of those and immediately drop Supreme King Zark on our side of the field. And you also have that Gate Infinity over here that this effect cannot be negated, and once per turn, if you control Supreme King Zark, you can target one card your opponent controls and gain life points equal to its attack. So if you have a monster on their side of the field that doesn't go down from Zark, you can gain the life points of it, and you can attack your opponent for the 4k and then the 24, which is really, really helpful. And the next turn, if you draw into your next turn, you're going to draw into a copy of Dragon Shrine, which is going to help out. These will be banished, by the way. You can then drop the copy of Dragon Shrine during your following turn and send from deck to graveyard a little combo that I like to do in this deck as well, which is sending a copy of Arc Pendulum to the graveyard first, and then sending a copy of Supreme King Dragon Dark Worm to the graveyard, because it gets you 2 monsters in the graveyard for the price of 1. Because you might get this card stuck on a XYZ summon like this, where you want to special summon it and then use it for a material. Well, you just sent one of your materials to start over going into Zark again. You also have the Sky Iris that can pop this and then grab you another Odd Eyes monster from your deck to your hand, or a copy of Odd Eyes Fusion. Because if your opponent controls a monster, another really cool combo about this deck is that if we grab the Odd Eyes Fusion, and let's just say that we don't have any monsters on our side of the field, that these are all gone, let's just say that we didn't have the time and we didn't summon those, you can actually activate the Odd Eyes Fusion and use monsters in your extra deck to fusion summon into an Odd Eyes monster, like your copy of Vortex Dragon. So when you fusion summon into Vortex Dragon, you can use an Odd Eyes monster and a Pendulum monster, which we have in our extra deck, which this counts as a Fusion Pendulum monster, Fusion Pendulum Dragon, so it acts as two of our 4 different types. So if you're missing something like a Pendulum Dragon or a Fusion Dragon, you can use this, and you can use this XYZ Dragon right here, or you can send from your deck to the graveyard your Rebellion Dragon instead, these two, which is what I usually send, and then you have your Fusion and Pendulum and XYZ and Pendulum, so you can use these as either of the 2 pieces that you need. If you need a Pendulum Dragon, you can use this. If you need XYZ Dragon, you send this. If you need a Fusion or a Pendulum, you send either for either side, which is kind of a cool little tidbit of information for this particular deck. So let's go ahead and do another test hand. That was a really quick where we actually got to summon out Zark right off the bat. You looked at that hand and you didn't see Zark. I guarantee you probably didn't see Zark right off the bat, but I guarantee you a lot of times if you stop and really look at this deck and think about how you can get Zark, and remember that you have the Verte Anaconda to use with your Miracle Synchro Fusion. If you're missing a piece and you have 2 extra monsters on your field, you can use your copy of Union Carrier. You have plenty of ways to actually go into Zark. And this is the Miracle Synchro Fusion I'm talking about sending to the graveyard off of your copy of your Supreme, or off of your copy of Verte Anaconda. So you have plenty of ways to actually go off to go into Zark. You have a lot of ways that you can actually summon Zark. So let's go ahead and do another test hand and see what we can actually pull off. And let's see if we can get Zark out once again on our side of the field. If we open up a copy of Pendulum Call, usually a Pendulum Call plus one other Magician monster usually ends in a Zark. but let's see what we can actually pull off. So we're going to go ahead and draw into a Sky Iris, which is not bad. Dragon Shrine, not bad at all. Chronograph is really good. Pendulum Call is really good. And Miracle Synchro Fusion. I'm not super excited about the Miracle Synchro Fusion in hand, but we have a really good opening hand. Again, I would probably recommend with this particular deck, because Zark does board wipe, to go second, and you get a copy of your Star Pentagraph. But I'm just going to go ahead and say that I'm going first to show you guys what kind of opening board you can make with this deck. So let's go ahead and open up with a copy of Dragon Shrine. That's really, really helpful to go into the Dragon Shrine. This card is actually not dead in the hand. I'm going to show you how in just a second. So we're going to go ahead and send from our deck to the graveyard a copy of Arc Pendulum Dragon, which is a vanilla monster, a normal monster. And then you can also send from your deck to the graveyard a copy of Dark Worm, because it says send a normal monster, which your copy of Odd Eyes Arc Pendulum Dragon counts as a normal monster. We then are going to use our copy of Supreme King Dark Worm to immediately special summon to our side of the field. I'm going to open my hand up like this so you guys can see exactly what we're playing with. And then we're going to get to search from our deck to our hand a copy of the Gate 0. I always usually search Gate 0 over Gate Infinity because it's just a better of the two gates. Plus, we usually lack on the high scales, or we usually lean towards the high scales with our particular hands. So you usually want to get those low scales as quickly as possible. So now I'm going to activate the copy of Sky Iris. And you guys might be thinking, whoa, wait a minute, what are you going to pop? Well, guess what? The Miracle Synchro Fusion. This card says that you can target one other face-up card, or you actually can't pop this. You can discard this, actually, if you want to. So we're going to actually discard this. I was going to pop this, but this says face-up, so we can't do that. We're going to go ahead and activate the copy of Pendulum Call with the Miracle Synchro Fusion, which is still totally fine. We still got plays to go through for days. We're going to use this to go into a copy of Harmonizing Magician. You always grab the Harmonizing Magician. This card is pivotal to the deck's success. And you're going to grab a low scale because you have, or a high scale, which is going to be the copy of Black Fang Magician. Make sure you grab the Black Fang Magician because you're going to use the Gate Infinity and the high scale that you have in your hand to pendulum summon your other monsters. Now keep in mind, keep an eye on your cards, what you have and what you're missing to go into Zark. Because right now, you have your Odd Eyes in the graveyard, which is your Pendulum Dragon. You have your XYZ in your hand, and you have a way to get to your Synchro or your Fusion right here. Your Gate Infinity can also count as, guess what? This card can get your Synchro or your Fusion Dragon out by destroying it and another card. So we can actually get a first turn Zark just with this particular hand. So I'm going to show you how. So we're going to immediately activate on our side of the field. We're going to activate the Black Fang, and we're going to put the Gate 0 over here, and we're going to immediately Synchro or put these two monsters out on our board just to get our cards out of our hand, and then the copy of Harmonizing is going to search the deck. I'm probably going to grab the Purple Poison because the Purple Poison is probably going to be a lot better in this particular scenario just to get it out on our side of the field. And then now if you look at your field, you have two excess monsters that you really don't need on your side of the field, don't we? We have the Supreme King Dragon Dark Worm, and we have the copy of Harmonizing Magician. And guess what? We have this in the graveyard that you can banish from the graveyard. So here we go. We're going to link summon these two together, and we're going to summon out our copy of Union Carrier because they're the same attribute. Immediately go for Union Carrier, and then once you do, you can use the Union Carrier's effect to grab the last card that we need, which is actually our White Wing Magician. Once you grab the White Wing Magician, you have everything you need to go for a first turn Zark. Guess what we do right here? You're going to immediately equip this onto the Chronograph or the copy of another monster on your side of the field. You have plenty of cards, and then you can use the Chronograph's effect, which says if you control a monster, if you control this card, then you can special summon. You can banish from your field 4+ monsters from your hand, field, and or graveyard, each with a Pendulum Dragon, a Fusion Dragon, XYZ Dragon, and a Synchro Dragon. And guess what we get? Right off the bat, first turn, you get a Zark. Right there. Now, you could go for other plays because you did have those other monsters. You do have the first turn Zark, which is what you're trying to do usually. If you want to go a little bit different of a route and do a little bit different of a play, instead of summoning this, you could have these monsters on your side of the field, which you had this in the graveyard and you had these monsters on your side of the field. It doesn't really matter where we had them, but I'm going to put them kind of back where they were. Instead of going for this monster, you could keep this in the deck. We're going to backtrack just a little bit. This was in our scales right here. You could backtrack just a little bit, put this back in the extra deck, and we could actually go for some XYZs and link plays as well, instead of going for that first turn Zark. You saw how to go for Zark. You do have the option to go for Zark with this particular field, but you can also go for something like a copy of Selene, because you have a couple of magic cards in the graveyard that'll get you a search. And her ability is that you can place spell counters on her equal to the number of spells in your graveyard, and you can remove 3 spell counters to search a spellcaster monster from your deck to your hand. And you could leave your copy of Chronograph on your side of the field if you want to. Now keep in mind, you'd have to use something like your Supreme King, Dark Worm, your Harmonizing, and your Purple Poison to go for her. You've already Pendulum summoned for the turn, so that would be kind of a good play. You could also go for what I like to go for, which is usually the Time Star Magician, where you overlay the copy of your Harmonizing and your Purple Poison together. Or you could go for another play like I would, and you could go for the Wee Witch and then leave 2 of your monsters on your side of the field, so you could recover later your copy of your Arc Pendulum, so you could get a 2700 beat stick on your side of the field, which would be really nice if they do destroy your other monster. So those are a couple of different routes that you could actually go with this particular hand, but really, realistically, we're going to go for Zark. That's what you're going to want to go for, usually, is to link these away, send this to the graveyard, banish this, your copy of your other monster, have the copy of Union Carrier on your side of the field, and then immediately grab that copy of White Wing, which I think I put on the bottom of the deck. No, I shuffled it back into the deck. Banish your White Wing that you had equipped down here, and then summon your Zark and your copy of Union Carrier. So that was just a couple of other different routes that you could actually go with this particular hand. If you draw into your next turn, don't forget you have the Sky Iris that you can pop the Gate 0. And the Gate 0 also has the ability to control Zark. You take no damage. And then once per turn, you can, if you have the Supreme Gate Infinity in your other Pendulum Zone, you can destroy both these cards. And if you do, you add a Polymerization or a Fusion spell, which can be your Miracle Synchro Fusion. If we draw into the next turn, we get a Pendulum Call, which is pretty dead in the hand. But you can also pop this and then search a card, and then discard a card from your hand to search you 2 more Pendulum Magicians to lay your scales, and then start Link Summoning and XYZ Summoning again. So you have plenty of plays to OTK your opponent with going into something like your copy of your going into something like a copy of your Wee Witch, or you could even get 2 Synchro monsters on your side, or 2 in Synchro, and go for this and board wipe your opponent again in OTK. So that's it for the test hands, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. I hope that was a little educational for you guys of how to play Zark. Basically, you kind of got to watch your hand, and what you're trying to look for is your copies of your monsters. These monsters, you're trying to get these in the field, in the graveyard. The only thing that I find to be a problem with this deck is when they hit the extra deck, it becomes a little bit of a problem to get them out of the extra deck sometimes. But what you're trying to do is either get them in the Pendulum Zone, get them on the field, get them in the graveyard, or get them in your hand, while always trying to get your copy of Chronograph on the field, because then you can just banish all the different pieces that you have and then immediately go for Zark, which is what you're trying to do with this particular deck. So that's it for the test hands, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. I really hope that this was an educational experience for you guys to see how to play Zark. But anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can come part of the notification squad, and definitely check out that Patreon down in the description below, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.